The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for the most important meeting in centuries. The massive dome stretched high above them, its crystal walls showing the swirling colors of distant nebulae. But today, no one was looking at the beautiful view. Council Speaker Vorthak stood at the center podium. His crystalline body caught the light from above, sending rainbow patterns across the floor. The ancient being had seen many crises in his 1,000 years of service, but nothing like this. He raised one of his forearms and the hall fell silent. "We are here to discuss a matter that threatens the very foundation of galactic peace," Vorthak announced. His voice echoed through the chamber like music made of glass. "Entire civilizations are vanishing. Not defeated, not conquered, gone completely, as if they never existed at all." A ripple of fear moved through the assembled delegates. The reptilian representatives hissed softly among themselves. The floating gas beings dimmed their internal lights. Even the proud Silicon Confederacy members shifted uncomfortably on their metal chairs. Captain Han Sol of the Human Diplomatic Corps sat quietly in the human section. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the other species react. At 55 years old, he had served humanity for 3 decades. He had seen wars, peace treaties, and first contact with dozens of alien races, but he had never seen the galaxy so afraid. "The first disappearance happened 6 months ago," Vorthak continued. "The Crimson Fleet was a powerful military force, 12,000 ships, 50 billion warriors. They had just finished destroying 3 human colonies in the Tau sector." General Thess of the Reptilian Dominion stood up. His scales were dark red with anger, and his yellow eyes glowed. "My people tracked the Crimson Fleet after their attack," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "Our sensors showed them heading back to their home system. Then, nothing. No energy signatures, no debris, no distress calls. They simply vanished." "What did the humans do to them?" demanded Ambassador Kree from the Silicon Confederacy. Her metallic body clinked as she moved, and her electronic voice was sharp with accusation. "The timing cannot be coincidence." Captain Han Sol remained seated, his hands folded calmly in his lap. Several alien species turned to stare at him, but he said nothing. Dr. Ji Woo, Earth's xenobiologist, took notes on her tablet as more reports came in. She was younger than Han Sol, only 32, but her studies of alien life had taken her to every corner of known space. As she listened to the testimonies, she began to see a pattern that made her stomach tighten. "The deep hunters disappeared next," reported Captain Waves in Darkness from the aquatic world of Oceania. The fish-like being spoke through a water-filled helmet, its voice bubbling. "They were ancient warriors from our deepest trenches. For 10,000 years they had slept in the darkness. Then they awoke and attacked the human research station on our 3rd moon. The station had only 50 scientists studying our coral reefs." "What happened to the deep hunters?" asked Vorthak. "They returned to the deep places after their raid," Waves in Darkness replied. "But when our explorers went to find them 3 days later, the trenches were empty. Not just empty of the deep hunters, but empty of everything they had ever built. The ancient cities, the weapons, the breeding pools, all gone. It was as if they had never existed." A delegate from the hive mind stood up. Her insect-like body clicked as she moved, and her compound eyes reflected the chamber's light like tiny mirrors. "The Bone Reapers attacked a human transport, ship carrying families to a new colony world," she said. "The ship was defenseless, only civilians and children aboard. The Bone Reapers killed everyone and added their skeletons to their trophy collections." "And then they vanished too?" Vorthak asked, though he already knew the answer. "Their entire home system is empty space now," the hive delegate confirmed. "We sent probes to investigate. There is no planet where their world once was. No asteroid field. No cosmic dust. Just empty vacuum, as if no planet had ever formed there. At all." The pattern was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Dr. Ji Woo stopped taking notes and looked up at Captain Han Sol. He was still sitting calmly, but she could see something in his eyes. Not guilt or fear, but a deep sadness. 17 separate incidents, Vorthak announced. 17 different species or factions that attacked human civilians. All of them have disappeared completely. No survivors, no wreckage, no historical records of their existence beyond the moments of their attacks. This is impossible, declared Chancellor Nexus of the Star Republic. The elderly humanoid leader's silver hair gleamed as he shook his head. You cannot erase a species from existence. You cannot rewrite history. Even with the most advanced technology, there would be traces, quantum echoes, something. Yet here we stand discussing species that our databases say never evolved beyond primitive life forms, Ambassador Cree pointed out. The Bone Reaper's homeworld now shows only simple bacteria in its oceans. The Crimson Fleet's star system contains uninhabited planets with no signs of advanced civilization. How do the humans explain this? All eyes turned to Captain Han Sol. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate and calm. The chamber fell completely, silent as he walked to the speaking platform. His boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor, and his human heartbeat seemed loud in the sudden quiet. Honored delegates, Han Sol began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Humanity has always been a peaceful species. We prefer trade to war. We choose cooperation over conquest. We believe in protecting the innocent and helping those in need. But what happened to our missing species? General Thess demanded. Han-Sol met the reptilian's gaze without flinching. We defended ourselves, he said simply. We protected our families and our children. What became of our attackers afterward is not our concern. The simple statement sent a chill through the chamber. There was something in the human's tone that suggested vast depths beneath his calm surface. Something that spoke of powers beyond normal understanding. You speak as if you had nothing to do with their disappearances, Ambassador Cree accused. We did not make them disappear, Han Sol replied. We simply existed. We lived our lives. We protected our young. If that existence somehow caused problems for those who threatened us, then perhaps they should have chosen different targets. The chamber erupted in arguments and accusations, but Captain Han Sol remained calm at the center of the storm. Dr. Jiwoo watched from the human section, finally understanding why she had been assigned to this mission. The galaxy was about to learn something about humanity that would change everything. As the shouting continued around him, Han Sol looked up at the crystal dome above and whispered a prayer in ancient Korean for the souls of the vanished, even though he knew they had made their own choices. 3 days after the heated council meeting, Commander Yoon-sik stood on the bridge of the investigation ship Unity. The vessel was unlike any other in the galaxy. Built by 12 different species working together, it combined the best technology from across known space. Its hull shimmered with reptilian armor plating, its engines used Silicon Confederacy power cores, and its sensors were based on hive mind designs. Yoon-sik was 38 years old and had commanded patrol ships for 15 years. He had investigated smuggling rings, pirate raids, and territorial disputes, but he had never been asked to solve the mystery of entire species vanishing into nothing. The responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Commander, we are approaching the former territory of the Bone Reapers, announced Dr. So Young from the science station. She was the only human on the mixed species crew, chosen for her expertise in psychology and xenobiology. At 29, she was young for such an important mission, but her research into alien behavior patterns had impressed the council. Standing beside her was investigator Zeph, a tall, thin being from the gas giant colonies. His skin was pale, blue, and seemed to shift like smoke in the light. His people lived in the upper atmospheres of their worlds, floating in the endless storms. They were natural detectives, able to see patterns that others missed. The space here feels wrong, Zeph said, his voice like wind through metal. My senses detect disturbances in the quantum fields. Something terrible happened in this region. Captain Nara of the hive minds moved to join them at the observation window. Her insect body was elegant despite its alien form, and her compound eyes could see across multiple spectrums of light. She had volunteered for this mission because her people valued truth above all else. The mystery of the vanished species troubled the collective consciousness of her entire civilization. According to our star charts, the Bone Reaper homeworld should be directly ahead, Commander Yunsik said. Long-range sensors show nothing but empty space. Dr. So-Young activated the ship's most powerful scanning array. The results appeared on the main screen and the entire bridge crew fell silent. Where a planet should have been, there was absolutely nothing. No debris field from a destroyed world. No asteroid belt from ancient impacts. Not even cosmic dust floating in the void. This is impossible, Captain Nara clicked in her native language, then switched to Galactic Common. Planets do not simply cease to exist. Even if completely destroyed, there would be remains, fragments, elemental particles. Run a full spectrum analysis, Yunsik ordered. Check for any traces of heavy elements that would indicate a planet once existed here. Dr. So-Young worked at her controls for several minutes. When she looked up, her face was pale with confusion. Commander, the analysis shows that this system never had a fourth planet. The gravitational patterns, the orbital mechanics, even the distribution of cosmic dust all indicate that only 3 worlds ever formed here. But that cannot be correct, Investigator Zeph said. We have records of the Bone Reaper world, trade agreements, diplomatic communications, battle reports, from their raids on shipping lanes. The records exist, Dr. So-Young confirmed, checking her computer. But the physical evidence says the planet never existed. It is as if reality itself was changed. Commander Yunsik felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of space travel, he had never encountered anything like this. Take us to the last known battle site, he ordered, where the human freighter encountered the Bone Reaper fleet. The Unity moved deeper into the system, its sensors sweeping the emptiness. According to the reports, a human transport ship carrying 200 families had been attacked here just 1 month ago. The Bone Reapers had disabled the ship, killed everyone aboard, and taken their skeletons as trophies. It was this attack that had preceded their disappearance. I am detecting something, Captain Nara announced. Her compound eyes were focused on her instrument panel. A small object floating in the debris field of the destroyed transport. On screen, Yunsik commanded. The main display showed a small, metallic cylinder tumbling slowly through space. It was clearly of human design, marked with Earth symbols and text. It appears to be a message beacon, Dr. So-Young said, still broadcasting on emergency frequencies. Bring it aboard, Yunsik ordered. Let us see what message the humans left behind. 20 minutes later, the beacon sat on the science lab table, while Dr. So-Young worked to access its contents. The other team members gathered around, curious about what they might find. The beacon is transmitting in an ancient Earth language, Dr. So-Young reported. Korean, I believe, very old dialect. Can you translate it? Asked Investigator Zeph. Dr. So-Young nodded and activated the beacon's playback function. A voice filled the lab, speaking in the musical tones of ancient Korean. She listened carefully, then translated for the others. It says, "Those who threaten our children forfeit their right to exist." The lab fell silent. Captain Nara's compound eyes dimmed as she processed the implications. Investigator Zeph's smoky skin seemed to darken. Commander Yunsik felt his hands begin to shake. That sounds like a warning, he said quietly. Or a promise, Dr. So-Young replied. But who left this message? The transport ship was destroyed before it could launch any escape pods. The crew and passengers were all killed. Perhaps someone else was watching, suggested Captain Nara. Human military forces monitoring the transport's journey. But Investigator, Zeph shook his head. My people reviewed all the sensor data from that day. No human ships were in the system. The transport was completely alone when the Bone Reapers attacked it. Dr. So-Young ran additional scans on the beacon. What she found made her step back from the table in shock. Commander, this beacon was not launched from the transport ship. Then where did it come from? Yunsik asked. According to the quantum signatures, it materialized in space exactly 24 hours after the Bone Reapers vanished. It appeared from nothing, began broadcasting, and has been floating here ever since. The implications hit all of them at once. Someone, or something, had placed the beacon here after the battle. After the disappearance, it was meant to be found by investigators like themselves. We need to return to Earth, Commander Yunsik said finally. "We need to speak with human authorities directly." "Do you think they will tell us the truth?" asked Captain Nara. Dr. So-Young was studying the beacon's quantum readings on her portable scanner. The patterns she saw made no sense according to conventional physics. "I think," she said slowly, "we are dealing with something far beyond normal military technology, something that exists outside our understanding of how the universe works." As is, the Unity prepared to leave the empty system. None of the investigators noticed the slight shimmer in space around them. Something vast and invisible watched their departure, and in dimensions beyond normal perception, ancient beings nodded with approval. The humans' protectors were pleased that the message had been delivered clearly. The galaxy was beginning to understand. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Director Park Jun walked through corridors that officially did not exist. The facility known as Project Sanctuary was buried 3 kilometers underground, hidden from all satellite scans and sensor sweeps. Only 57 people in the entire galaxy knew of its existence, and 49 of them worked here. Park-Jun was 62 years old and had spent his entire adult life keeping humanity's greatest secret. His hair had gone completely gray during his 30 years of service, and his face bore the lines of a man who carried impossible knowledge. Today, he was bringing someone new into that knowledge. "Dr. Hyojin is waiting for you in Laboratory 7, his assistant told him as they walked. The new researcher, Taeho, arrived this morning. "How much does he know?" Park Jun asked. "Only that he has been assigned to a classified xenobiology project. Nothing about the true nature of our work here." They stopped at a heavy door marked with symbols that hurt to look at directly. The metal seemed to shift and move when viewed from the corner of the eye, as if it existed in more dimensions than normal matter. Park Jun placed his hand on the scanner, and the door opened with a sound like distant thunder. Inside, Dr. Hyojin was explaining basic quantum theory to a young man who looked overwhelmed by his surroundings. Taeho was 26 years old, fresh from his doctorate in theoretical physics. He had been chosen for this assignment because of his brilliant work on dimensional mathematics, but nothing in his education had prepared him for what he was about to learn. "Ah, Director Park Jun," Dr. Hyojin said, looking up from her holographic displays. "I was just explaining to Taeho how we first made contact with beings from parallel dimensions." Taeho stood up quickly, bowing respectfully to the director. His eyes were wide with confusion and curiosity. The laboratory around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. Equipment hummed with energy that made his teeth ache, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with invisible forces. "Sit down, young man," Park Jun said gently. "What Dr. Hyojin is about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about humanity's place in the universe." Dr. Hyojin was 43 years old and had been the project's lead researcher for 12 years. She had been there when they first succeeded in opening stable portals to other dimensions. She had been there when the beings they called Guardians first made contact. The memories of those early days still gave her nightmares. "Tell me about the 22nd century crisis," she said to Taeho. "What do you know about humanity's near extinction?" Taeho thought carefully. "The Devourers came from outside our galaxy, silicon-based machines that consumed entire worlds to fuel their expansion. They destroyed Mars, Venus, and half of Earth's population before we stopped them. But the history books are unclear about exactly how we won that war." "The history books lie," Park Jun said simply. "We did not win through superior technology or military strategy. We won because we were desperate enough to try something that should have been impossible." Dr. Hyojin activated a holographic display that showed Earth as it had been during the crisis. Cities burning, oceans boiling, billions of people fleeing to underground shelters. When conventional weapons failed, our scientists attempted to breach the barriers between dimensions. We thought we might find new energy sources, new weapons, new places to hide. "What did you find instead?" Taeho asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "We found beings that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously," Dr. Hyojin replied. "Entities so vast and complex that our minds can barely comprehend their true nature. We call them Guardians because that is the closest word we have for What they do. The holographic display changed to show mathematical equations that twisted through 11 dimensions. Tejo tried to follow the logic, but the formulas seemed to shift and change as he watched them. The Guardians are drawn to certain types of consciousness, Park Jun explained. Specifically, they are attracted to species that demonstrate what they call the protection instinct, the willingness to sacrifice everything, including one's own existence, to protect the young and innocent. Humanity showed that instinct during the Devourer crisis, Dr. Hyojin continued. Parents threw themselves into plasma fires to save their children. Soldiers fought impossible battles to buy time for civilian evacuations. Entire cities chose to die rather than abandon their youngest members. Tejo was beginning to understand, and the realization made him feel sick. The Guardians helped us defeat the Devourers. Not helped, Park Jun corrected. The Guardians do not interfere directly in our conflicts. They simply ensure that species which threaten children under their protection face consequences that exist outside normal reality. The holographic display showed the final battle of the Devourer War. The mechanical invaders had surrounded Earth, preparing for the killing blow that would finish humanity forever. Then, suddenly, they were gone. Not destroyed, not defeated. Simply erased from existence as if they had never been built. This is what happened to the Bone Reapers, Dr. Hyojin said quietly. And the Crimson Fleet, and all the others who targeted human civilians. But how? Tejo asked. What do the Guardians actually do to them? Park Jun gestured to another display that showed quantum recordings of recent disappearances. They experience what we term unbecoming. Their existence is unraveled across multiple dimensions and timelines. They do not simply die. They cease to have ever existed at all. Tejo watched the recordings in horror. Entire fleets seemed to dissolve like smoke, their crews experiencing the reversal of their own life processes. Their thoughts unraveled, their memories faded, their very atoms forgot how to hold together. The process begins with the attackers themselves, Dr. Hyojin explained. But it spreads backward through their entire species history. Their homeworlds revert to pre-civilization states, their colonies become uninhabited, every trace of their advancement is erased. This is monstrous, Tejo whispered. Is it? Park Jun asked calmly. These species chose to target defenseless children and civilians. They chose genocide as their method of warfare. The Guardians simply ensure that such choices have permanent consequences. But we do not control them, Dr. Hyojin added quickly. We cannot summon them or direct their actions. We do not even communicate with them directly. They act according to their own understanding of justice and protection. Tejo looked around the laboratory, finally understanding why everything seemed so alien. This equipment is not just for studying them, you are monitoring their activities. We track dimensional disturbances across the galaxy, Park Jun confirmed. We try to understand their methods and predict their actions, but mostly we just document what happens to species that make the wrong choice regarding human children. How many people know about this? Tejo asked. You are the 58th, Dr. Hyojin replied, and you will be the last for many years to come. We prefer to keep our protection secret. It is more effective that way. Park Jun walked to a window that looked out into a chamber filled with swirling energy. Shapes moved in that energy, vast and incomprehensible, existing in dimensions that human eyes could barely perceive. The Guardians approved of your recruitment, he said to Tejo. They can sense the protection instinct in individuals as well as species. You would die to save a child, even one not your own. That quality makes you suitable for this work. Tejo joined him at the window, staring at the beings that had made humanity untouchable. What happens now? What is my role here? You will help us monitor the galaxy, Dr. Hyojin answered. You will track species that show aggressive tendencies toward human colonies. You will document their choices and record the consequences. And if I refuse? Park Jun smiled sadly. Then your memories of this place will be carefully removed and you will wake up tomorrow believing you were rejected for the position. But I do not think you will refuse, Tejo. You have already seen what happens to those who threaten innocence. You understand why this secret must be kept. As Tejo stared into the swirling energy, he realized that his life had just changed, forever. He was now part of humanity's greatest secret, guardian of knowledge that could terrify the galaxy. But as he watched the ancient beings move through dimensions beyond counting, he also felt a deep sense of safety. Humanity, his children, would never be unprotected again. Emperor Krex of the Obsidian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the reports from across the galaxy. The massive warship hung in space above his homeworld, its black armor reflecting the light of distant stars. At 7 feet, tall with skin like polished stone, Krex was an impressive figure even among his warrior people. He had ruled the Obsidian Empire for 23 years, expanding its territory through conquest and fear. The other species cower before these humans like frightened children, he said to his generals. They speak of disappearances and mysterious forces, but I see only clever propaganda designed to make us afraid. General Voss, his oldest advisor, shifted uncomfortably. The veteran warrior had fought in hundreds of battles and conquered dozens of worlds, but something about the reports troubled him. My Emperor, perhaps we should investigate further before taking action. The disappearances are well documented. Documented lies, Krex snapped. Show me proof. Show me weapons that can erase entire species. Show me technology that rewrites history itself. You cannot, because no such things exist. Admiral Thane, commander of the Obsidian Fleet, stepped forward. The humans have only small defensive forces around their colonies. If they possessed such powerful weapons, why would they not use conventional military forces to protect themselves? Emperor Krex nodded approvingly. Exactly. These disappearances are elaborate deceptions. The humans secretly relocated the attacking species to hidden prison worlds, then spread stories of supernatural erasure to frighten potential enemies. The bridge fell silent as the officers considered their emperor's words. The Obsidian Empire had built its power through brutal efficiency and logical military thinking. The idea of interdimensional beings protecting humanity seemed impossible to their warrior minds. We will test their deception, Krex announced. Choose a target that will force them to reveal their true defensive capabilities. Admiral Thane consulted his tactical display. The agricultural world of New Busan has minimal military presence. 3 billion civilian inhabitants, mostly farmers and their families. It would be an easy conquest. Perfect, Emperor Krex said. If humans truly command supernatural forces, they will use them to defend a world full of defenseless civilians. When nothing happens, the galaxy will see that we were right to doubt their claims. General Voss looked troubled. My Emperor, if we are wrong about this, attacking civilians could bring terrible consequences. We are not wrong, Krex said firmly. Assemble the full battle fleet, 10,000 ships, enough firepower to crack planets. We will give these humans every opportunity to reveal their secret weapons. 3 days later, the Obsidian Armada moved toward New Busan. The massive fleet stretched across space like a dark metal cloud, its ships bristling with weapons designed to obliterate entire civilizations. Emperor Krex stood on his flagship's bridge, confident that he was about to expose humanity's greatest lie. On New Busan, Sergeant Dong Hyun of the Colonial Defense Force watched the approaching fleet through his scanner displays. At 31 years old, he had served on peaceful worlds for his entire military career. New Busan had never faced a serious military threat. His garrison consisted of only 200 soldiers equipped for basic peacekeeping duties. Sir, the Obsidian Fleet will arrive in 18 hours, reported Corporal Wu Jin from the communication station. Command is sending evacuation orders to all major population centers. Dong Hyun studied the tactical display with growing horror. 10,000 enemy ships against his small garrison and a few orbital defense platforms. It was not a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. Begin evacuating the children first, he ordered. Contact all schools and orphanages. Get the transport ships loaded and away from the planet as quickly as possible. Dr. Minna received the evacuation order while teaching her morning class at the New Soul Orphanage. The facility housed over 8,000 children whose parents had died in various conflicts across human space. At 28 years old, she had dedicated her life to caring for these war orphans, becoming like a mother to hundreds of displaced young lives. "Children, we are going on a special trip," she announced to her class of 7-year-olds. "Pack your favorite toys and meet me at the transport pad." But even as she spoke, Dr. Minna knew that 18 hours was not enough time. The planet had millions of children spread across 3 continents. The available transport ships could not possibly evacuate everyone before the Obsidian fleet arrived. Corporal Wu Jin coordinated with civilian authorities as panic began to spread across New Busan. The agricultural world had never needed a large evacuation plan. Most of its transport capacity was designed for moving crops, not people. "We can evacuate perhaps 500,000 children in the time we have," he reported to Sergeant Dong Hyun. "The rest will have to remain in underground shelters and hope for the best." Dong Hyun felt his heart sink. His duty was to protect the civilians under his care, but he lacked the resources to save them all. "Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement." The reply came back within an hour. "No military assets available for deployment. Maintain defensive positions. Protect civilian population. Good luck." Dong Hyun stared at the message in disbelief. Earth was abandoning New Busan to its fate. 3 billion people, including millions of children, would face the Obsidian Empire alone. As evacuation efforts continued through the night, strange reports began coming in from the outer system. Deep space monitoring stations detected unusual energy readings around the approaching fleet, quantum distortions that did not match any known technology. "Sir, the science station is reporting dimensional anomalies," Corporal Wu Jin said. "They say space itself is becoming unstable near the enemy fleet." Dong Hyun had no idea what dimensional anomalies meant, but he had more immediate concerns. The first wave of civilian transports was departing New Busan, carrying precious cargo of children to safety among the stars. Dr. Minna stood at the orphanage landing pad, watching as transport after transport lifted off into the night sky. She had managed to evacuate 3,000 of her children, but 5,000 more remained. The youngest ones did not understand why they could not go on the special trip with their friends. "Will the bad people hurt us?" asked little Sujin, a 6-year-old girl whose parents had died in a pirate raid. Dr. Minna knelt down and hugged the child close. "I will not let anyone hurt you," she promised. "We will stay together no matter what happens." 12 hours before the fleet's arrival, the evacuation effort suddenly accelerated beyond all logical possibility. Transport ships that should have taken hours to load were ready for departure in minutes. Children who had been scattered across the planet seemed to arrive at evacuation points with impossible speed. Sergeant Dong Hyun watched the miraculous efficiency with growing amazement. "How are we moving people this quickly?" he asked his staff. "I do not know, sir," Corporal Wu Jin replied. "The transport coordinators report that families are arriving at pickup points before they even receive evacuation orders. It is as if someone is guiding them to safety." In the final hours before the attack, nearly 2 million additional children had been evacuated. The operation defied all military logistics and physics, but no one questioned the miraculous efficiency. They simply worked harder to save as many lives as possible. Emperor Krex arrived at New Busan exactly on schedule. His massive fleet deployed in attack formation, surrounding the peaceful world with enough firepower to shatter continents. He opened communication channels to address the planet's defenders. "Surrender unconditionally and your deaths will be quick," he announced. "Resist, and we will make your final moments a lesson that the galaxy will never forget." Sergeant Dong Hyun stood in his command center, surrounded by the few soldiers who had volunteered to remain behind. Dr. Minna was with him, having refused to abandon the children who could not be evacuated. They faced certain death, but they faced it together. "This is Sergeant Dong Hyun of the New Busan Colonial Defense Force," he replied over the open channel. "We reject your surrender demand. This world is under the protection of Earth, and we will defend it with our lives." Emperor. Krex laughed at the defiant response. Very well, all ships begin orbital bombardment. Target population centers first. As the first energy beams lanced down from the Obsidian fleet, reality itself began to change around New Busan. The quantum distortions that had been building for hours suddenly exploded into visible phenomena that challenged the laws of physics. Space started to shimmer like water, and in dimensions beyond normal perception, ancient beings turned their attention toward the small agricultural world and the children sheltered beneath its surface. Commander Yoon-sik watched from the bridge of the Unity as space itself began to tear apart around New Busan. His investigation ship hung at a safe distance from the battle, but even here, 20 million kilometers away, their instruments were registering impossible readings. Commander, the quantum distortions are increasing exponentially, Dr. So-young reported from her science station. Her voice was tight with fear as she watched numbers that should not exist scrolling across her displays. The fabric of space-time is becoming unstable across the entire system. Investigator Zeph stood beside her, his smoky skin rippling with agitation. My people can sense dimensional shifts across vast distances, he said. Something is awakening. That has slept for eons. Something that exists in layers of reality we cannot perceive. Captain Nara's compound eyes were focused on the tactical display showing the Obsidian fleet. 10,000 ships had opened fire on New Busan simultaneously, their energy beams lancing down toward the planet's surface. But as she watched, something began to go wrong with the attack. The orbital bombardment is not reaching the planet, she observed. The energy beams are slowing down. No, that is not correct. Time itself is slowing around them. On the surface of New Busan, Sergeant Dong Hyun stared up at the sky in amazement. The deadly energy beams that should have vaporized him and his soldiers were moving like drops of thick honey through the air. He could see each individual photon of destructive energy crawling downward at a speed barely faster than walking. Sir, what is happening? Corporal Wu Jin asked. The enemy weapons appear to be frozen in time. Dr. Minna emerged from the underground shelter where she had been protecting the remaining children. Above them, the sky was filled with lines of slowly moving light that looked almost beautiful in their strange motion. It's like watching lightning trapped in amber, she whispered. In space around the Obsidian fleet, reality was beginning to restructure itself according to laws that existed beyond normal physics. The Guardians had awakened from their dimensional slumber, and their attention was now focused entirely on the beings who had chosen to attack human children. Emperor Krex stood on his flagship's bridge, trying to understand why his weapons were failing. Admiral Thane, report. Why has the bombardment stopped? Sir, our energy weapons are firing normally, Admiral Thane replied, confusion clear in his voice. But the beams are not reaching their targets. They appear to be moving through some kind of temporal distortion field. Impossible, Krex snapped. No technology exists that can manipulate time on such a scale. But even as he spoke, the Emperor began to notice changes in his own ship. The lights on his bridge were flickering in patterns that hurt to look at directly. His crew members were moving strangely, as if they were forgetting how to control their own bodies. General Voss, his oldest advisor, suddenly stopped in the middle of giving a status report. The veteran warrior's eyes went blank, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. My Emperor, I feel strange. I cannot remember why we came to this place. Commander Yoon-sik watched through his ship's powerful telescopes as the Obsidian fleet began to experience what could only be described as existence failure. The massive warships were not being destroyed by any conventional weapon. Instead, they were beginning to exist in reverse. Dr. So-young, are you recording this? He asked. Yes, Commander, but the readings make no scientific sense, she replied. The enemy ships are experiencing temporal inversion. Their crews are living their lives backward. Their memories are unraveling. Their very atoms are forgetting how to maintain coherent structure. Investigator Zeph's smoky form was now glowing with an eerie light as his dimensional senses overloaded. The beings responsible for this exist in at least 11 dimensions simultaneously, he reported. They are rewriting the quantum history of the attacking fleet, not just destroying them, but making it so they never existed in the first place. On the Obsidian flagship, Emperor Krex felt his own thoughts becoming confused. Memories that had been clear moments before were now fuzzy and uncertain. He could not remember why he had ordered the attack on New Busan. In fact, he was having trouble remembering what New Busan was. "Admiral Thane, why are we here?" he asked. Admiral Thane tried to answer, but found that he could not recall the mission parameters. Worse, he was beginning to forget basic facts about space travel. The control panels around him looked alien and incomprehensible, as if he had never seen starship technology before. The process of unbecoming spread through the Obsidian fleet like a plague of non-existence. Ship after ship began to flicker and fade as their crews lost the ability to remember how to operate their vessels. The massive warships that had seemed so threatening minutes before were now drifting helplessly as their occupants reverted to more primitive states of mind. Dr. So Young monitored the quantum signatures of the disappearing fleet. "Commander, the effect is spreading backward through their timeline. The Obsidian Empire's homeworld is reverting to pre-industrial civilization. Their colonies are becoming uninhabited. Their entire technological development is being erased." "How is this possible?" Captain Nara asked. "What force can rewrite history itself?" Commander Yunsik thought about the message beacon they had found in the empty space where the Bone Reapers used to exist. "Those who threaten our children forfeit their right to exist," he said quietly. "I think we are witnessing that promise being fulfilled." On New Busan, the frozen energy beams in the sky suddenly began moving backward, flowing up toward the ships that had fired them. Sergeant Dong Hyun watched in awe as the orbital bombardment reversed itself, the deadly energy returning to weapons that were forgetting how to function. Dr. Minna brought the children out of their shelters to watch the impossible sight. Above them, 10,000 warships were fading from existence like mirages in the desert heat. "Are the bad people going away?" asked little Sujin. "Yes, child," Dr. Minna replied, holding the girl close. "They are going very far away and will never come back." Emperor Krex's final transmission was heard across the galaxy as his consciousness unraveled. "What have we done?" His voice echoed through space, growing fainter with each word. "They are not disappearing. We are being unmade. We never existed. We never built these ships. We never learned to fly among the stars. We never—" The transmission ended as the last Obsidian vessel faded from reality. Where 10,000 warships had been, there was now only empty space and the gentle radiation of distant stars. Commander Yunsik ordered his ship's sensors to scan the former location of the Obsidian homeworld. The results confirmed what he had expected to find. "Their star system now shows only primitive life forms," he reported. "No cities, no technology, no space travel capability. It is as if they never evolved beyond early tribal societies." Dr. So Young was studying the quantum echoes left behind by the Guardian's intervention. "Commander, I am detecting dimensional signatures that suggest the beings responsible for this exist partially in our reality and partially in realms we cannot access. They appear to be monitoring human colonies across the galaxy." "A protection system," investigator Zeph concluded. "Beings from other dimensions have chosen to defend human children from extinction. Any species that threatens those children faces complete erasure from the timeline." Captain Nara clicked thoughtfully in her native language. "This explains all the disappearances. Every vanished species had attacked human civilians. The pattern was there, but we did not understand its true meaning." As the Unity prepared to return to Nexus Prime with their report, Commander Yunsik took one last look at New Busan. The planet continued to orbit peacefully around its star, its 3 billion inhabitants safe from harm. Children who had been moments away from death were now playing in gardens beneath a clean blue sky. "Log entry, Commander Yunsik recording," he said. "Investigation into the galactic disappearances is complete. We have confirmed that humanity exists under the protection of interdimensional entities that respond to threats against human civilians, particularly children. These entities possess the ability to erase entire species from the timeline. Recommend immediate implementation of strict protocols regarding interaction with human colonies." The Unity turned away from New Busan and began its journey back to galactic civilization. Behind them, invisible to all sensors, Ancient beings of immense power watched their departure with approval. The message had been delivered clearly. The galaxy would learn to leave human children in peace. In the depths of space, reality settled back into its normal patterns. The Guardians returned to their dimensional slumber, satisfied that justice had been served. But they would continue to watch, always ready to defend those who demonstrated the protection instinct that resonated across all planes of existence. 6 months after the Obsidian Empire ceased to exist, the Galactic Council convened for its most important session in recorded history. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was packed with representatives from every known species, but the atmosphere was completely different from their previous meeting. Where once there had been anger and accusations, now there was respectful silence. Council Speaker Vorthak stood at his crystal podium, his ancient form catching the light from the dome above. In his 1,000 years of service, he had never seen the galaxy so united in its understanding of a single truth. Fear had a way of bringing clarity to even the most complex political situations. "We are here to formally establish new protocols for interaction with humanity," Vorthak announced. "The investigation conducted by Commander Yunsik's team has provided us with undeniable evidence of the forces that protect human colonies." Captain Hansol of the Human Diplomatic Corps sat in his usual place, but now every eye in the chamber watched him with careful respect. The weathered diplomat had not changed, but the galaxy's perception of what he represented had transformed completely. Commander Yunsik stood at the witness podium to deliver his final report. The investigation had aged him, adding gray to his black hair and lines around his eyes. What he had learned about the true nature of reality would stay with him forever. "The beings we have termed Guardians exist in at least 11 dimensions simultaneously," he began. "They appear to be drawn to species that demonstrate strong parental instincts and willingness to sacrifice for the protection of young and innocent life. Humanity has formed some kind of symbiotic relationship with these entities." Dr. So Young activated the holographic displays that showed the quantum recordings from New Busan. The assembled delegates watched in silence as the Obsidian Empire experienced its complete erasure from the timeline. The images were disturbing, but they could not be disputed. "The Guardians do not operate under human command or control," she explained. "They act according to their own understanding of justice. Any species that targets human civilians, particularly children, faces consequences that exist outside normal physical laws." Investigator Zeph stepped forward, his smoky form rippling with remembered trauma. "The disappearances are not death as we understand it. The targeted species experience what can only be called temporal erasure. They are removed from history itself as if they never evolved beyond primitive life." Captain Nara of the Hive Minds provided the tactical analysis that every military leader in the chamber needed to hear. "No conventional defense exists against these forces. No weapons can harm beings that exist primarily in other dimensions. No strategy can counter entities that can rewrite the past." The hall remained silent as the implications sank in. Every aggressive species in the galaxy was suddenly faced with the reality that humanity was effectively untouchable. Not because of superior technology or military might, but because they were protected by forces beyond comprehension. Ambassador Kree of the Silicon Confederacy was the first to speak. "The evidence is clear, but we must ask, what are humanity's intentions? If they command such power, how do we know they will not use it for conquest?" Captain Hansol stood up slowly and walked to the speaking platform. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber as every delegate waited to hear his response. The weight of speaking for his entire species pressed down on his shoulders. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice calm and measured. "Humanity does not command these beings. We do not summon them or direct their actions. They act according to their own sense of justice and protection. But they only protect humans," General Thess of the Reptilian Dominion pointed out. "What about the rest of us?" Hansol met the reptilian's gaze steadily. "The Guardians are drawn to the protection instinct. They respond to species that demonstrate willingness to sacrifice everything for their young. If your people showed the same dedication to protecting children that humanity does, you might find yourselves under similar protection. Dr. Jiwoo, Earth xenobiologist, joined Hansol at the podium. She had spent months studying the reports from the investigation and had reached conclusions that would reshape galactic politics forever. Our analysis suggests that the Guardians evaluate species based on their treatment of the innocent and defenseless, she explained. Humanity earned their protection not through military prowess, but through our consistent willingness to die for our children. Any species could potentially form a similar relationship. What about species that have already attacked human colonies? Asked Chancellor Nexus of the Star Republic. Are we all under threat of erasure? Captain Hansol considered the question carefully. The Guardians seem to respond only to direct threats against human civilians, especially children. Past conflicts between military forces do not appear to concern them, but any future attacks on defenseless human populations will certainly trigger their intervention. Council Speaker Vorthak called for the formal vote on what would become known as the Human Accords. The document established strict protocols for interaction with human colonies and strongly advised against any military action that might endanger civilian populations. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the galaxy agreed to the new protocols. Even the most aggressive military cultures recognized that some battles could not be won through conventional means. As the session concluded, Captain Hansol was approached by dozens of delegates asking about humanity's secret. He gave the same answer to each of them. We are a species that puts the protection of our children above everything else, including our own lives. That truth resonates across dimensions. Later that evening, in a secure communication with Earth, Hansol spoke privately with Director Park Jun at Project Sanctuary. The underground facility continued its quiet work of monitoring the Guardians and documenting their activities. The galaxy has received the message clearly, Hansol reported. Deep space conflicts involving human colonies have dropped to nearly zero. Most species are actively avoiding our territory. Good, Director Park Jun replied. But we must remain vigilant. There will always be species that think they can find a way around the Guardians' protection. Dr. Hai Jin joined the conversation, from her laboratory deep beneath the Korean mountains. The Guardians have been more active lately, she reported. We are detecting dimensional disturbances around several human colonies that have reported unusual alien behavior. What kind of behavior? Hansol asked. Species that were previously hostile are now going out of their way to help human civilians, Dr. Hyejin explained. Trade agreements that favor human colonies, military escorts for human transport ships. It appears the galaxy is actively trying to demonstrate good intentions toward humanity. Young researcher Tae-ho, now fully briefed on Project Sanctuary's work, provided the psychological analysis. Fear of the unknown is a powerful motivator. The galaxy has seen what happens to species that threaten human children. Now they are trying to prove they pose no such threat. Director Park Jun smiled grimly. The universe has learned an important lesson. Some things are more sacred than military conquest or territorial expansion. The protection of innocent life resonates across dimensions, and those who violate that principle face consequences beyond imagination. As the conversation ended, Hansol looked out at the stars surrounding Nexus Prime. Somewhere among those distant lights were billions of human children living their lives in safety. They played in gardens on agricultural worlds, learned in schools on research stations, and grew up protected by forces they would never need to understand. The galaxy had learned to leave them in peace. In the final scene, Dr. Hai-Jin stood in her laboratory watching the dimensional monitors that tracked Guardian activity across known space. Young Tae-ho worked beside her, still amazed by the responsibility he had inherited. Will humanity ever tell the galaxy the full truth about the Guardians? Tae-ho asked. Dr. Hai-Jin considered the question as she watched ancient beings move through dimensions beyond counting. The truth is already known, Tae-ho. We are a species that will sacrifice everything to protect our children. That truth resonates across all planes of existence. The Guardians simply ensure that others understand the consequences of threatening what we hold most dear. And if someone finds a way to harm the Guardians themselves, then they will discover that beings who exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously are very difficult to threaten, Dr. Hyjin replied with a slight smile. The Guardians have been watching over various species for millions of years. They chose humanity because we demonstrated the protection instinct in its purest form. As long as we remain true to that nature, we will never be alone in the universe. As night fell over the hidden facility, the work continued. Monitoring the galaxy, documenting the activities of interdimensional protectors, and ensuring that humanity's greatest secret remained safe. Above them, human children slept peacefully under starlit skies, protected by forces that existed beyond the boundaries of normal reality. The galaxy had learned its lesson well. Anyone who dared challenge humans disappeared without a trace, erased, not just from existence but from the very timeline itself. And in the cosmic balance of power, that knowledge had brought an unprecedented peace to the stars.